I will be showing you how Chris Arnold misled co-plotters and why he must be whipped. That will be brief anyway. The larger part of our discussion tonight will be focused on post-Washington ASSC2. What should Amazonians expect in the days ahead? That notwithstanding, we will be putting unnoticed the hypocrisy of the West vis-à-vis the Russia-Ukraine war and the genocidal onslaught in Amazonia. You do not want to miss this discussion for anything. Let's have a rendezvous at 8 p.m. Amba time, exclusively on ABC Amba TV. I look forward to seeing you.
Against all odds, I knew that the people of Amazonia will arise. When the truth is placed side by side with the lies will not last for long. The Amazonians spoke in their numbers. They came as a show, as a they came as a revolt against lies and innuendos, and they came with a desire to prove the people, the enemy wrong, and to send a message to the enemy that we have decided to free our nation, and none of this type of things can stop us. So it was entirely in the hands of the people. I believe in the sovereignty of the people. So I was very, very happy that it is the people's power that was manifested. They came, they sent their delegates. We did not handpick or appoint them. They sent their delegate, they chose them by themselves, and they came and they expressed themselves fully on the issues. And the resolutions were voted by them, and they have cut our job for us to execute. I'm very happy. This is an expression of a people-led revolution, not a strong man-led revolution. The people came. If the people did not come, there will be no conference. We could not just sit here by ourselves, a few of us, and put all this paperwork and draw out resolutions. No, nothing was made ready-made. We proposed and exchanged ideas, and the people had decided. And today, we can say the people have spoken. So I'm very, very happy. I'm very satisfied because it's a people's conference by the people and for the people.
Right, Mr. President. Now, in your speech, you said the people at home should feel the heat. I got that clearly. The people at home should feel the heat. Like, we want the people at home to feel the heat from this just concluded conference. Now, what kind of heat should they expect? Because I'm sure some of them followed, and of course their chairs, their representatives are also here. But what should they feel from this just concluded conference? What kind of heat?
The people, I'm talking about the actors, because everybody in his house might not really feel the heat. The actors we have in the home front are actually our ARFs. That is why they deserve a gift from this conference. Just as we have put the house in order, as we have made strategies and policies and agreed on certain issues, the only message we need to send to them is a package. We need to empower our ARFs to know that life has returned again. And that, my dear ARFs, fellow stakeholders, let me also start by putting my hand into the basket for myself and my family for $300. Fellow stakeholders, dear sovereign people of Amazonia, There is no great gathering of friends without some who had hurt each other before. Yet in Washington, we did not gather these 3 days to fight. That should be the spirit of every true Ambazonian. The willingness to talk with each other, not just to talk to each other. In Washington, reason prevailed over self. We did not come here to compete or compare. We came to complete some of the steps we needed to take for our collective survival as an endangered species on Earth. We did not come here to justify the past, but to accommodate the future. We came here to share our concerns, coordinate our ideas and solutions, fetch from our diverse experiences, give heed to wise counsel, and prop our hopes and prayer for Ambazonia. To a certain extent, we had to overcome our trust issues, acknowledge our ignorance, suspend our mutual suspicions, swallow our anger and suppress our bitterness to make this ASSC to happen. We gave up our positions in favor of our common goal because our cause is bigger than every single one of us. This Sunday, the 13th of March, 2022, shall go down in the history of our liberation quest as the day the Ambazonian spirit prevailed over darkness in our war of liberation. My continuous prayer, however, is, may all of us be as nothing, so Ambazonia should be everything. That even if we lost anything, let Ambazonia gain everything. That even if we were all destroyed, and God forbid, let Ambazonia be safe and secure. Ambazonia is greater than those who are for us and those who are against us. Yes, Ambazonia, let's increase. It should increase, and anything that wants to exalt itself, anyone that wants to put his or her interests above Ambazonia shall dissolve like ice in the rising of the Ambazonian sunshine. Ambazonia has risen to fall no more. During the past 3 days, we disagreed to agree. Some quarreled, but at least tolerated one another. We were angry, but ended up with smiles for what we achieved together. We sought a better structure we could build together. We have proposed monumental changes to our liberation apparatus. To do so, we confronted our fears together. We informed ourselves during questions and answer sessions on issues we knew little or nothing about, save the cooked up stories making all their rounds on social media. In Washington, we drew a bold line between smear campaigns and whistleblowing. We have separated between propaganda and lies on one hand, and facts and saving truths on the other side. We told and also heard the truth that hurts but heals. We adopted these solutions or strategies not for our convenience, not to please or hurt anyone, but to secure our inevitable rise of our quest, to our conquest. We took the necessary risks true leaders always take when managing complex and dynamic endeavors like ours. But just a reminder, fellow warriors, our enemy will not simply change because we had a successful conflict. We have to translate this energy into immediate groundbreaking actions in every domain. In other words, the fact that we have defined our tasks does not mean we have accomplished them. Let us remain vigilant and focused. And let's be part of the facilitation and every needed action. We must ensure that we implement change for the better, whether the enemy changes or not. Let me use this opportunity to plead with Ambazonians at home and abroad. We should stop using the term ground zero to represent our country Let's make this our first resolution from me. Ambazonia is neither a mere piece of land in the middle of nowhere, nor a zero in any aspect. Henceforth, let's purposefully adopt the appellation the home front instead of ground zero. Any title your enemy is comfortable to call you is the name he thinks depicts you correctly as a nobody. Let's say the home front henceforth and no more ground zero. Activists take note. As you have heard from the resolutions, the people have decided to dissolve the ignoble Restoration Council and replace it immediately with the Interim House of Representatives, IHR. That is a major statement we have made, emphasizing to the world that we already restored our independence politically on the 1st of October 2017, so we cannot continue to have a political structure known as a Restoration Council, suggesting we are working to restore the independence of Ambazonia, which has already been restored. Calling our quasi-legislative body a Restoration Council did not befit our argument that the IG is Joa's government restored. We don't need a council for restoration. We needed something that sounds like the one we already restored. But having a House of Representatives with the Speaker in the helm now makes more sense. Dear stakeholders, members of government, the Interim House of Representatives, being a new house, shall be reconstituted immediately. ASSC 2 has given us a great work to do and reforms to adopt, from constitutional amendment, APP amendment, institutional restructuring, the creation of new positions, and the collapse of many. The task is huge and urgent. A reconstituted Interim House of Representatives will be at the center of these changes. I therefore call on all LGAs to proceed immediately to select from amongst true patriots, faithful, tested and trusted supporters, contributors to this interim government, and knowledgeable Ambazonians, one representative per constituted LGA as House Rep. Names should be submitted by the county coordinators to and LGA chairs to the Secretary of State for the Department of Home Affairs. Counties operating such as counties without constituted LGAs shall send the one member to represent the county to the DHA. DHA is charged with vetting all representatives before putting them in the forum. These ASSC resolutions are matching orders given to the IG by you, the legitimate stakeholders of this struggle, representing the sovereign owners of our liberation quest, the people. Your job may have ended today, but ours as the government officials and leaders just begun. We need your support every step of the way. I have therefore set up a task force to take charge of the implementation of the main resolutions of this conference. I am assigning my vice president to chair this important task or task force, assisted by Comrade Don Wanobi, Comrade Steve, Dr. Winnie Lobati, Professor Bridget, Professor Epote, Barrister Timothy, and Chairman Frank. In the hours ahead, I will proceed to make appointments to the Constitutional Draft and Amendment Committee, and I will reshuffle my cabinet in line with the ASSC 2 resolutions. Our immediate goal as stakeholders is to focus on the home front. The home front should feel the heat of the momentum radiating from Washington. We cannot live here without making an emphatic statement for the home front, from Dian to Bui, from Lebialem to Ngoketunja. we have need of $50,000 more to complete our Lava 3 package to all 13 counties. Yesterday, some die-hard Ambazonians who stayed up late at the conference raised $7,600 towards our ASSC Lava gift to the home front. Thank you for a good start, but we need more. We have budgeted a total of 100,000 lava for this phase, so every county may benefit at least 8 to 10,000 lava from the IG. We need this money urgently so we can enter into implementation in all counties simultaneously. Some of us are asking for simultaneous action. We can only have simultaneous action when we plan simultaneously. Ambazonia must be free. Nothing can stop us. We will get there, whether battered or strong, whether crawling or running, whether dead or alive. Our ashes must get to Boya, must get to a free Ambazonia. Viva the stakeholders of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Viva the sovereign people of Ambazonia. And viva the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. God bless our beautiful country.
Be showing you how Chris Arnold misled co-plotters and why he must be whipped. That will be brief anyway. The larger part of our discussion tonight will be focused on post-Washington ASSC2. What should Ambazonians expect in the days ahead? That notwithstanding, we will be putting on notice the hypocrisy of the West vis-a-vis the Russia-Ukraine war and the genocidal onslaught in Ambazonia. You do not want to miss this discussion for anything. Let's have a rendezvous at 8 p.m. Amba time, exclusively on ABC Amba TV. I look forward to seeing you.
And we have to make sure that we turn our attentions now, all our attention to them, and that we reach out to them immediately, and that should begin right now. What we are raising here right now is 110% for them. So that is one way to make them know that they can count on us, that none of these things has destabilized or distracted us in any manner, that we are here for them and they can count on us. So that is the heat they need to feel. They need to feel that fellowship. They need to feel that they can count on us. Even in the trenches, wherever they are struggling to defend themselves and defend our nation, our liberties, they can count on us because the people are awake. The people are for them. We need to start with that gesture. We want to make sure that we are almost there, raising about 100,000 to make sure that we visit every county. And as a combined effort with the county and the local government, they should feel our presence. That presence is heat. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you, sir, for that clarification. Just two more questions before we go, please. Yesterday, Dr. Sunday Adelaja gave some insight and some strategic moves that we could take to get our freedom. Do you think that those ideas that he gave are visible and we can, do you think that we can actually go by some of those strategies? He talked about liaising with some countries and getting ambassadors and some other strategies that he gave. Do you think that we can actually try some of these strategies out?
Yes, my uncle lady, without going into the details, that man is a wealth of wisdom and strategies. I cannot go in there to pick anything. What I will do is that he has come to the house and I will not let him go. We're going to work with him as long as he's ready to work with us. Probably he will tell us even what he did not tell us. We are going to make sure that we adopt or take into consideration every strategy that he gives us that is within reach and that we can handle. We are going to consider that. I don't want to pick and choose and tell the Republic or somebody waiting out there that this is what they told him and this is what he said he's going to do. But sure, we are going to work with him and learn some more from him.
Okay. All right, Mr. President, just one more question, please. Was there a reason why you chose this particular time and season for this conference? Was there a specific reason why this time, season was chosen for this conference?
Yes, just to say, to remind you that this conference has always been held around this time. The first time was in April the 11th. This time was March the 10th. It was going to be in April, but we had to bring it forward because the people, the sovereigns, the owners of this liberation train, we needed to gather sooner than later because there were issues they needed to look into to stabilize this boat, to ensure that the enemy does not, pull down everything before the owners are called. Anytime management has a problem, there's a level of discretion that managers can exercise over some things. But when the crisis gets to a certain level, managers call owners and say, hey, this is what is going on. So the owners have to come and make a decision at that. If you are a manager, you are still making decisions when it is very critical, you will go down for it. Because the owner will say, why didn't you bring us in at this time? So we brought the sovereign people of Ambazonia in at this time because it was crucial enough to make these people to gather, the stakeholders to come in sooner than later. So at least we brought it forward by 1 month compared to what happened in 2019. So we needed it, and you can see for yourself that the people, these are the things that the people needed to address. And why we had to bring it forward, because our only representative house was a disappointment to the people. If that representative house was there doing its job, we would have taken our time to gather in April. But when the people you have sent somewhere to go there and represent the country and make decisions, when that house is hijacked by people, and it is no more following the agenda of the people, then it's a crisis indeed. Then it is time to call the people themselves. So the one you sent here has disappeared. We don't know where he is. So come here by yourself. Otherwise, everything is going down. So that is exactly why we convened with someone or invited the people, the stakeholders, to come. And they came from all the 13 counties. We're so proud of what the Ambazonian people can do.
All right, Mr. President. Well, I said that was going to be the last question, but please permit me to ask the very last question because you said something that prompted that. The first day, I know Barrister Mesha talked about and emphasized the fact that we are still yet to get our freedom. And we should emphasize on how we should get our freedom.
I will be showing you how Chris Arnold misled co-plotters and why he must be whipped. That will be brave anyway. The larger part of our discussion tonight will be focused on post-Washington ASSC2. What should Amazonians expect in the days ahead? That notwithstanding, we will be putting unnoticed the hypocrisy of the West vis-a-vis the Russia-Ukraine war and the genocidal onslaught in Amazonia. You do not want to miss this discussion for anything. Let's have a rendezvous at 8 p.m. Amba time, exclusively on ABC Amba TV. I look forward to seeing you.
In fact, in his words, he said Amazonia is not yet a country, but on a revolution. So what are those strategic steps that we will take from now? I mean, we've worked on our constitution, we've worked on a lot of things. I mean, changing the name of Restoration Council to House of Representatives and all of that. Now, what can we do, or what are those things we'll do now, since we now know that this is the focus and this is what our struggle is all about? What are those strategic steps that we'll take to ensure our freedom is given to us? And this is
for now, everything we call governance here is governing the structures that are prosecuting the revolution, because we're not yet governing the country until we take the territorial space and start governing the people. So we are governing the structures. But that means we are still in the liberation phase. We are still in the liberation phase. So the number one duty, the number one assignment, the number one task, everything we do here is liberation. So that is the focus. Even our diplomacy shall fly on the wings of our defense, our self-defense and our resistance. So whatever in all our, if we don't do anything a day, we must do something to push the pin forward on the ground. So my focus is primarily to make sure that we change the temperature on ground, on the ground, on the home front. If we have to change the temperature on the home front and keep it hot and keep it going, find the means and find the strategies that will keep the home front as strong, as vibrant, as hot as possible. If that is well, diplomacy will be easier. That's what we saw in Ukraine. Diplomacy will be easier because if you don't have people's attention, you cannot even communicate with them. For you to get their attention, you must prove that you are not a walkthrough, that you are able to defend what you say. You are able to defend yourself. So our focus right now will be to cause lava to flow on the ground by every means possible. The fire should be burning and should be consistent. Then the rest shall fall in place. The rest shall fall in place. Negotiations will come. Countries will endorse us. We will get people, celebrities will pay attention, or everything we can do shall be, because when you are being crushed and you can do nothing, The world has shown us that
Mike.
they only be your friends when you are strong. Yes, if a strong man is crushing a weaker person, nobody wants to fight the strong man, so they allow you crush that weaker person. After there shall be peace after that. So we are not going to be crushed. That is our primary focus. And if La Republic is listening to me now, let him know that our prayer and our resolve, the summary of it all, let him not be distracted by, let no one be distracted by all these reforms we are putting in place. This is just how to manage our structure and keep it effective. To do what? To liberate the land of Amazonia. Until we are done with that, not everything comes second. You want to have more sticks on the ground, more granite, more lava on the ground, flowing everywhere, more and more that will cause the land to be heated. That is what we are rising up with to do now. That's my focus, matter of fact. If I was not here, I should be holding 1 or 2 meetings on the ground right now. Yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much. Please, Mr. President, permit me to read this short piece. I'm sure that we'll definitely find it very interesting. It's by one of our very own, Don't Wanna Be. Please permit me to read this. Trust me, you definitely like it. It more or less talks about the objective of this concluded ASSC 2. And I'm sure that it will inspire us to get ready for ASSC 3. So please permit me, Mr. President, to read this very short piece by one of our very own. All right, so it says, we are here not to be thrown nor sidelined, but to build. We came here not to blackmail nor condemn, but to redeem and embrace. We are brought here by history, not to blame nor accuse, but to save and rescue. We arrive here in all directions, not to conspire, nor gossip, but to reclaim and proclaim. We sat here not to point fingers, nor make excuses, but to refocus and move forward. We are assembled here by destiny, not to criticize, nor ostracize, but to sacrifice. We are gathered here on the invitation of hope, not to castigate, nor instigate, but to communicate. We are here from different backgrounds, not to reference individual preference, but to conference our influence. We are ushered here not to trump our personal advantages, but to trumpet our collective understanding. Amazonia, the here is the glorious moment. The now is the time. Our togetherness is the power, and our resolution is heaven's strategy to victory. All right, thank you all for listening. Of course, this is ABC Amba TV. I am Oni Opala. Thank you all for your contribution. I believe Amazonia will be free. In fact, we are free.
Thank you.
Good evening, fellow Ambazonians, and welcome to this very special broadcast. This is post ASSC2, and we are in a new dawn, a new phase of Ambazonia's history, a new phase of the liberation war, a time like never before, a time when we have a clearer blueprint and a way forward, a time when the strategy has set in place the things that we're supposed to do. And like I promised you, today we will be going down a road. Some of you would rather not want to go at this particular time. Some just prefer. Perhaps we should just bury it and leave it all alone. I agree with you. I know your pain. I feel your emotions, and I'm deeply connected with it. But I think we should highlight a few issues and to try to enlighten. The objective of this platform is always to inform the misinformed
and the disinformed. I want to call on those that are watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, to share. Tell somebody that we are live, and our night is going to be really long. This is Tarh Paddy King. I will be right back. Keep sharing.
The pressures of life come to weigh me down, but I'm not moved by what I see. They come and they go, but I stand strong by His word that lives in me. I am stronger, I am wiser by His Spirit, by His word, yeah. I'm moving on to greater heights.
Okay. I hope my voice is clearer right now. Like I told you, we're going to have a long night. A long night. There are lots of things for us to talk about. We are back from Washington. Lots have been discussed. The resolutions are out for all to look, to judge, to make your conclusion. The question is, what should Ambazonians be expecting now? What should Ambazonians be expecting? There is another very vital aspect of our discussion for tonight, and we think it's imperative. It's silent. Mainstream media is talking it quite differently. But it is the duty of this platform, the one and only platform that is focused on nothing more than being the voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia. We're going to go deep into the hypocrisy of the West vis-a-vis the war in Russia, Ukraine, and the genocidal onslaught in Amazonia. We're going to make some comparisons, some contrasts as to the humanitarian damages that have been caused in both territories. What is the similarity? Yes, some may want to argue that Ambazonia's war is a war of independence. It's a war to be liberated from a Franco-Cameroon hegemony. But war is war. It is true that wars are fought differently because of the circumstances. Ours is mostly a guerrilla warfare in defense of a criminal army that is willing to excommunicate, exterminate our race. We are determined to fight, and the fight is in different fronts. We will fight on the ground, and we will fight on the media. ABC Amba TV is on a project. The project is dedicated on ensuring that we win the media war, and we win it really very soon. It is necessary that we would have to scrutinize what the big media houses, CNN, BBC, call them whatever name. What are they saying? How is the West responding to the plight of the peoples of the former British Southern Cameroons, today also known as Ambazonia? In fact, rightfully known as Ambazonia. Look at how the West reacts to Ukraine. Russian invasion. Is it actually an invasion? Is the media telling us the truth? What is happening in Ukraine? How is that related to Ambazonia? Why is every media house talking about Ukraine? And no one seems to be talking about the war in Ambazonia. And of course, Mr. Biya took one day on the 22nd of September 2017 and wasted more than 400 lives with live bullets. Harmless, armless civilians of Ambazonia were wasted. And the media was reporting with a spine, with a wave, without any form of seriousness. Today, we see the West from the United States of America into Europe, calling on Putin, sending sanctions upon sanctions, economic sanctions like never before. The economy is being destroyed. COVID-19 came and it's gone. The war in Ukraine has replaced the headlines. Today we are listening to the war and there is no COVID-19. There's also a question, what has changed with the sciences that all of them said when it was the time of COVID-19? Or is that illness not dangerous anymore? That might not necessarily be our concern, but it also indicates the attitude of the West. What is this current dispensation, the current war order? Do African lives really matter? What should Amazonia do at this time? These are necessary questions that every Amazonian stakeholder, every Amazonian citizen should ask and redefine their approach towards this war. What's your involvement? Are you acting like coopers, coup plotters, coopers, whatever you want to call them? Dr. Tita would preferably call them disgruntled, but I don't see any reason why they should. Do you want to be criminal like the coup plotters or the coopers? The questions you have to ask, and these are questions that have answers. Now we look into our constitution, how it has been so defied, and that's why stakeholders were critical during the Washington conference as to what must be done with the Constitution. It was brought to notice that before anything is done in our interim Constitution, we must have an amendment clause. Right now, the resolutions have been presented on the table of the president. When is he going to pass that into law? The Secretary of State for Communications and IT yesterday announced that by the 26th, stakeholders, every LGA and county would have to send into the House, the interim House of Representatives, would have to send into the House their representatives. Amazonians, who are you going to be choosing? Who do you want to get into the House? Do you want to get another criminal that looks into the Constitution? It doesn't understand. Do you want to get another fraudster who looks into the Constitution and denies to read? The determination is in your hand. The future of Amazonia is in your hand. ASSC2 set for us a platform like never before. Like never before, we saw Amazonians debating different opinions. We saw democracy on the peak of it. A tailored democracy that is suitable for wartime. We saw stakeholders, passion and love. It ended with money being raised. Money was being raised. The man whom Amazonians believed in, and they believe in his vision, within just 2 hours, raised close to 40,000 US dollars, telling him, hey, Mr. President, we believe in you, and we think you've got to go. What is the strategy? The president is going to answer that for himself. But this evening, I have with me, back behind the stage, a technocrat, a veteran politician and diplomat, I would say an attorney, and no other but Tim Beheza. And we will be examining very closely ASSC2, the approach, the behavior of the West towards our plight. And then I will crown it up all by taking you through those painful moments of how Chris Arnold, like I told you the last time, I understand his craziness makes some of you would rather want to call him Chris Anus, but he is Chris Arnold. We're going to process how Chris Arnold misled coopers, and why I believe he must be whipped. At this moment, I will be transitioning into the studios to talk with Barrister Team. Stay tuned. Barrister Team, good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Paddy. Thank you, viewers. Thank everybody. I hope we'll learn something from this discussion.
Yes, I'm always glad to have you. This is just part one of our discussion today. Tomorrow, I hope that I will be able to have Barrister Valentine Ghana and you again, same time, so that we get deeper into it. There's so much that happened in Washington, and you were a vital part of it. You brought in your debates really very strong. We saw it. I will make sure that I go through it chronologically, and whatever we can capture today, we're going to capture. What we can't, we will take into tomorrow. The idea is to have Ambazonians engrafted into the vision of ASSC or post-ASSC to prepare the ground from when the president will come to give us the blueprint as to what has been voted into law or the bill that has been passed. That notwithstanding, there is so much for us to talk about. I want you, Barrister Team, to first and foremost give to us an appraiser from your perspective as to what happened in ASSC 2 in Washington. We are patient and we will listen.
Getting you.
Yes, I'm waiting.
Thank you, sir. Let me introduce it by telling our viewers and listeners what ASSC2 did not set up to do. We didn't set out to preserve a particular position for the IG, presently led by President Sako. No, that was not our goal. Our goal was to strengthen.
Barrister Team, a moment, please.
Yes.
Do you want to get your camera down so the viewers can enjoy watching you? Just get your perfect. I think endeavor to make sure that you are like this so that we can have the best of you. I think this is beautiful.
I was saying that ASSC2 did not set up itself to have a special place for President Sako. Now, we set up ourselves to prepare the institutions for today and for generations to come, as long as this battle remains. So for those people who tell you they went to prepare a ground or something for President Sako, that is totally wrong. Then, let me make this clarification once more. We have heard this story of trying to restore the Jua government. Well, we must understand that we are not thinking of going to Bohet to beat Augustin Jua, who came from Belo, a certain big command. No, we're not restoring Jua. We're trying to restore the institutions it set, the standards that they bore. That's what we are struggling to do. For the past 2, 3, 4 years, in fact, beginning 2017, when the full conclave set up the interim government with some basic institutions, we realize, those who are honest, we realize that the institutions set in place were actually not working. One, because some people didn't understand what they meant. Two, because some people just tried to misuse what they had. And so we had to set that thing straight for today and for the future. Again, back to the Jua government. What are we trying to set up? We're trying to set up an institutions that respect the Constitution. What is the Constitution? They are the basic laws of the land. They are not what you want, but they are what they are. No constitution will satisfy everybody, but it binds everybody as soon as it is called a constitution. Maybe some of us don't know. Under Jua and Foncha, they had a parliamentary system where the prime minister issued from parliament. But in spite of all that, once the prime minister was there, he formed the executive. The parliament still remained there. The parliament was now the legislature. They fulfilled certain rules. And may I just add, at the time of Foncha down to Muna, to Jua, there was a speaker of the assembly who was called W.N.O. Fiam. He was a speaker. So he played roles. That institution played the roles which are supposed to play. So we set out under ASSC2 to put these things in order, because we realize, for example, that the so-called Restoration Council was deliberately going out of order. In addition to that, we realized that the name Restoration Council, they have nothing to restore other than to put back those institutions. If we all agree that we have restored our independence, then the Restoration Council has no more meaning, because they have nothing to restore, especially when in the attempt to restore, they were abusing the institution. So that's the background. And so I can say perfectly firm that ASSC2 achieved these goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to take from bottom top. You mentioned a replacement. We left Washington with a replacement of Restoration Council. And that replacement was the Interim House of Representatives. I understand the argument. Just now you argued that if we agree that we have restored our independence, we should have another name. But our discussion always expands to, we want to actualize the restoration of our statehood. Meaning we have made a declaration, and as it stands, no legal body apart from us, the United Nations, has not even agreed. By de facto policy, perhaps they are hoping that Yaoundé should just defeat us on the war and then conquer us, so that we just become extinct, excommunicated, and the land is fully owned. But now, before we even go to that point, Tim, to sufficiently tell us why you think that at the actualization phase, the name Restoration Council should be totally wiped out. Is it all about just demystifying whatever was there previously? You need to sufficiently tell us, why do we really think at this actualization phase it has not yet been actualized? Because we do not have authority over our national territory. We are basically now legally, because there is no treaty of union between the two nations, the land belongs to us. But nobody is talking about that. So, don't you think if we maintain this name, Restoration, it reminds us, instead of getting us to rest, it reminds us as to the fact that there is work to be done. Therefore, we can beef our game and keep on fighting. Vice the team.
Thank you once more. You see, the Restoration Council, as instituted on October 31st, 2017, during the second conclave, the fourth conclave, was not what is expected of us. First, the Jua government had a House of Assembly, what we now call the interim House of Assembly. It is interim, depending when we get to Boya. They also had a House of Chiefs. But the Restoration Council, as per the interim, the fourth conclave, did not create a House of Chiefs. The Restoration Council, as conceived in the conclave, was a representative of some regions and some organizations. We have long since passed that, because after that there was the Berlin Conference in 2019, which attempted to change the whole setup of the Restoration Council to a representative body, because it decided that the LGAs, which are the grassroots people, should be represented in the Restoration Council. This is like MPs being elected from the ground, from the people. But they did not abolish this regional and group representation. What are the LGAs? Before you live in Europe, in England, in Japan, in the United States, as an Ambazonian, you come from somewhere. You belong to one of the LGAs or to a county in Ambazonia. So if you are in the United States like I am, and I'm interested in my county, I can run for elections in my county, and I'll get there. You don't need to carve out a representation just because I live in the United States. Another representation for someone who lives in Canada. Another one for someone who lives in China, and so on and so forth. So it was outdated, because living in Canada, living in the United States, living in England is not a constituency. So that needed to go. So that what we call the interim House of Assembly will represent entirely people who live in Ambazonia, who can say, I come from Fundong, I come from Akwaya, I come from Edebato, I come from A, B, or C. Thank you.
Okay. I think that there is a huge plus to that debate you just brought up. It should be a house that is fully represented. Now, are you saying that the previous construct of that former house was a mistake? Because I understand in the former house, you had those that were not representing any constituency. And we know maybe some form of a gentleman agreement to get nationalist leaders and movement involved. That was some form of inclusivity. So are you now saying that this new idea is correcting a mistake that was previously made?
I think that are you getting me?
I can get you very loud and clear.
Well, I think that the people who conceived the Restoration Council might have been well-intentioned. But the truth is that that institution was hijacked and abused, criminally abused. For example, the Restoration Council as conceived was not even what it was, because in the whole Restoration Council then, the only group that was represented there was the SCNC. The other groups that were contemplated joining never joined the IG, and therefore they were not in the Restoration Council. AGOFC, Sukadev, They were not there. But going forward again, the conclave concluded, I think, in Article 34 or something, that going forward from the day of the conclave, October 31st, all the struggle for liberation of Ambazonia was conferred solely on the interim government. So those who belong to the Restoration Council were not coming to challenge the interim government as the sole representative of the people. But again, I said it was abused. For example, let me give you a few examples of the abuse. The Restoration Council, as conceived at the time, did not include an upper and lower house. But the people who got there carved out a constituency for themselves and created something within it called an upper house, which was a reserved club for themselves. And in fact, that's where all the decisions were made. If you are not a member of the so-called upper house, you did not exist as a member of the Restoration Council. You will not even sit inside there. It was abused. Secondly, the Restoration Council had a role and still has a role as defined in our Constitution, Article 14 and 15. The composition, 15. Their sole function, they were given 3 roles to play: vetting, advisory, and quasi-legislative. They were not even a full legislator, just quasi. These were the 3 functions assigned to them. Those 3 functions are still assigned to the interim House of Assembly. And so if they were respecting simply this, we will not be where we are. I say it was abused. How was it abused, for example? Let me give you another example. This is the Restoration Council, where the whole Constitution does not talk about term limits anywhere, either for the council, for the president, or anybody. But they went in to institute a 2-year term limit for the president. And when we pointed out this to them, rather than say they made a mistake, they blamed us for doing it, and then they went further to make more mistakes. What did they do? They purported to impeach the president. We're not there yet. And they elected a new president. For how many months? 4 months or 6 months? What did they derive the power to change 2 years, 6 months, 5 years? That's an abuse of authority. The institution was abused, criminally abused, because it is not because they did not know. If it was because they did not know, they would have realized from the first mistake that, look, we made a mistake to put this 2-year term. But rather than even do that, they came to, on their new president they elected, they give him 6 months. Where on earth, even in a family meeting, will you have a 6-month term? So the institution was abused. As I said earlier, we said in ASS 2 to put records straight for the future, for the present and the future. So we hope not to get any such abuse of authority again. Again, worst of all, they went further to transform themselves beyond a legislature. They assumed the functions of a legislature and an executive. How did they do this? Throughout my life, I'm an old man, as all of you can see me here. I've read history. I've not known in London, in England, in UK, in China, in Russia, where the Speaker of their House issues executive orders to the cabinet, to the executive. That the Restoration Council chairman will issue executive orders directing the executive, the ministers, the executive staff, how to work, was an abuse I've never been seen anywhere in the world. I don't imagine Nancy Pelosi or whoever is the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the United States issuing an executive order to direct any government as a member of government in the United States under Biden or under even Trump to do or not to do certain things. Where did it become? How did Mr. Kumita become the president stroke chairman of the Restoration Council? How did that ever happen? Those abuses have to be stopped and to be stopped henceforth. I told you that in Boya, there was a speaker called W.N.O. Effiong, William Depp Effiong. He could not and never attempted to issue an executive order to the government of Jua or to the government of Funcha. There were only 26 parliamentarians in the West Carolina House of Assembly, but they had these rules were defined out. That is not part of the legislation. To the point that he would tell people that if they need money from the treasury, they should address their needs to him. What else can be abused more than that? Not even in China. So those abuses were criminal. That's why I put them. Because they cease to be ignorant. Because once they cease to be ignorant and they are repeated with the whole purpose of fostering a different agenda, that is criminal violation of the Constitution. So we said to correct this stuff, nonsense, this type of behavior for the future. We do not set out to punish Komita or to compensate President Sako. No. We set out to correct those abuses for today and for tomorrow. Thank you.
I agree with you, Barrister Beheza, that those behaviors, it's unfortunate sometimes we may have to get back to them as we chart a way forward. I would agree that it was criminal, it was primitive, and it was dull. That is it. And that is going to lead us to the last part of the discussion I definitely will be having and showcasing to every Ambazonian how Chris Arno misled Coopers and why he cannot escape a whip. He should not. Before we even get back to that, let me come back to our discussion, Barrister. That was just and I'm talking to all those watching us from Facebook and from Twitter, from YouTube. Remember to always type Ambazonia is free. We've passed the phase. I just saw Sylvester actually indicating that it is a progressive movement. We've gotten to the rightful stage at this time. I want to agree with you. But just type there. Don't say Amazonia must be free. We have already skipped the level of Amazonia must be free. Because if we decide that we are no longer talking of restoration, but now a representation, full representation into the house, then we should mimic that. And what is the strategic, positive, spiritual significance of making that declaration? As you continue to declare it, you believe it. It builds your confidence, your faith. It is important. Your faith in fighting at whatever front. If you are a financier, once you continue telling yourself, even when you are alone, tell yourself, Amazonia is free. Refuse every distraction. Refuse special institutions. French Cameroon's criminals that are trying to take us into some form of federation. Refuse it. I'm going to come to that. It's a long night. But Barrister Tim, I'm getting back to you. You have said 5 times already, now I would say 4 times already, that is tonight, that we did not go into Washington to build a hegemony around President Sako. You've managed to tell us what the conference didn't really do. But then there was a constitutional crisis. Whether or not we agree, we accept it, or we choose to waive it, Ambazonians have been misinformed, miseducated. I understand that certain loopholes within the constitutions, or our constitution, interim constitution, were fine-tuned. It has not been passed already, or the president has not signed all of these resolutions into law yet. But you found out that stakeholders largely agreed on certain clauses which I want us to take. That has to do with the presidency. It has to do with the exclusion of anything that has to do with elections. Some, thick underscore, still believe that we can have an electoral policy or an electoral politics or form of governance during this time of war? Was it a rendezvous or a constituent of those who believe in Sako, or was it a constituent of patriots? And what is the rationale? Why must Ambazonia exclude election at the hem of their governance during this time of war? Why must I not call all of you who believed in Washington that there shouldn't be an election as surrogates of President Sako? Of what benefit is that to the nation of Amazonia? I really would love for you to speak elaborately on this.
Yes. I think elections, as per se, the word elections calls into mind so many things. If there were to be elections, it was not only going to be election of the president. All offices should be elected, notably the legislature and the presidency, the executive, if that were to apply. But we took into consideration the people who conceived the interim constitution, looked at it that way. It is almost impossible to talk about elections during a struggle, because election by itself must be addressed by an electoral code, which we don't have. The electoral code would tell us who is an electorate and the rules for the game. We had all this in mind. We looked at all this. But we did not exclude the idea of someone being removed from office. Let us deal with the interim House of Assembly first. For example, these are representatives of the counties and the LGAs. These counties and the LGAs have the right at all times to recall their representatives. If they think that they are not doing a good job, they can recall them and put in another person that they think is working well for them. That solves the problem of somebody eternalizing himself or herself at the National Assembly, at the interim National Assembly. We looked at the president, not President Sako, we looked at the president. We saw that even though elections are out, there's a possibility to remove the president. We did not rule out impeachment of the president as contained in the old constitution, allowed in the Restoration Council. But what we sought to do was to strengthen how impeachment should work, how you can remove a president, the procedure. It should not be somebody just work on the night, why he didn't give me beer, or I fell out with him, the government is non-functional, and they go to impeach the president. No. The interim constitution at the time did not provide for a procedure where somebody, a president, can be replaced. And let us not make the mistake of comparing what went on in the last few months with Sisiku. No. Sisiku, for example, was politically dead when they captured him into prison. So the office became vacant as per that. He didn't even need to have an impeachment procedure because he was out of office. He was in the enemy dungeons. But even in that circumstance, who was going to replace him? Are we going to have an elections? No. Let us just look back at what happened in the last few months. The Restoration Council purported to elect. They elected who and how did they elect? Do we know? Other than the 10-5 of them who did it. How did they get Dr. Tita there? How did they get Marianta there? They created an impeachment, which they themselves were the impeachers, they were the accusers, they were the judges, and everything. So in the present dispensation, we maintain impeachment, but we strengthen it. How do we do going forward if we must remove our president? Impeachment is not a thing to be taken lightly. We laid out in our proposal 3 stages to remove a president. The House of Representatives must meet as a house and draw up their charges against whoever they want to remove and vote those charges against him. And for even to pass this, the line of impeachment, there must be 75% who votes to impeach. Even then, when you vote to impeach, you have not yet removed him or her. To remove him or her, the thing has to go through a different procedure, a trial and conviction. For this, we said, okay, if the House does that, let's create a forum, an institution that will try the guy, whoever is the president. We said, okay, if he is impeached, he must be tried by, and found guilty by a jury. What is our own jury? Our jury, as of now, will constitute county coordinators of the 13 counties. All of them will come together for that purpose. Once they come together for that purpose, the person who is being impeached, who is being tried, must be given the opportunity to put out his or her defense. In fact, the House must come there and present their case to these 13 gentlemen or gentlewomen, and then they be cross-examined. The person who is being impeached is given the opportunity to defend himself or herself. So we cure the defect of where you find, like in the previous 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the Restoration Council purported to impeach somebody. They've not even removed the person, but they're writing to that guy who is impeached and calling him former president already. How did they even impeach? They sent even the members of the Restoration Council to go to the APP, expanded, whatever thing they call it there, to help draft the impeachment indictment and bring it to them to be voted on within a specific time as directed by the so-called expanded APP. What other abuse of power do you expect more than this in the world? So, again, we left the impeachment there, but we straighten how it should be heard. For anybody, if tomorrow you must remove the president, this is the procedure. But again, our interim constitution, we talk about elections, did not talk about elections. They gave elections at the end of the day when we are in Boya. Once we land in Boya, that interim government, whether headed by Sako, headed by you or me, will have 3 years during which to put in place the institutions, including a permanent House of Assembly. That process, while they're in Boya, they should ought to have a constituent assembly, they should ought to have electoral laws, they should ought to design constituencies. Once you're in Boya, the constituency will not be this. An elected official represents a population fixed, maybe one representative for, call it 20, 30,000 people. Once that law is there, if all the counties, all the LGAs in the division constitute only 30,000, all of you will put on, all that division will send only one representative. If a county has 400, 500, yes, I will have the estate. If it is Mezam County, if it is Fako County, whichever it is, they will have the representative based on the population that they have. Like in the United States, we have 485 members in the House of Representatives. It is fixed. After every census, this thing change. New York will have more, depending upon the population they have. California may have less if they have had people living in that place, and so on and so forth. So, elections, again, we emphasized that the interim constitution was not drafted by idiots. These people knew what they were doing. Let us leave elections until we get to Boya. But while we're waiting for the time that we get to Boya, the people who are saving us are not immune. They can be removed. They can be changed. House of Representative members can be recalled, as I've said. If the president is so bad, he has done terrible things, he can be impeached. But there must be due procedure followed.
Now,
I wonder if this
Barrister
answers the
Tim,
question.
Barrister Tim, now I want us
Yes,
to
sir.
make progress with this discussion, but then I would like you to say specifically, with specific examples, two things. Number one, what are some of those things that you think can qualify for a treasonable offense? that you think are treasonous and that could lead to the impeachment of the president? You're a legal mind. I would expect you to be very specific on that. Number two, what are some of those other things that were done in Washington and that you think strategically will change the face? I want us to get to the next part of our discussion now. So you talk on these two things, and so that we can make progress. Specifically, can change the ground game, can change. Ambazonians are looking. How did we include Ambazonians in Washington discussion? It's vital that we get into that.
Let me just give you an example. Now, those people who put impeachment in our interim constitution included things like high crimes and misdemeanors. I would personally not even put that misdemeanors there, because misdemeanor is a small offense. But how you determine that is high is different. We don't even have a criminal code. But we can see a crime. For example, you want me to give examples. If a president were to steal funds, siphon funds that are meant for this revolution, that is treasonable. If a president were to tend to become an active supporter of the opponent in the total disregard of our goals, that is treason. That is treason. That is worth removing the president from office. Again, the removal of a president by impeachment is not something to be taken lightly. I cannot enumerate all the situations, but there are some glaring situations that there is no way you will not see them happening. And what was your second point again?
Now the second.
Now, give me a second.
Yeah, that's fine. Now the second point, which I want you to talk on, as per the resolutions. Maybe you want to switch off your phone so that we finish this discussion
Yes,
very quickly. The second point,
yes,
which I want you to talk on, is what else was discussed in Washington that you think, as per your survey, your technical know-how, your experience in diplomacy. I understand you once worked with the United Nations in Congo, I think Rwanda, if I'm not mistaken, in Africa. So you think, based on some of these things that were discussed, agreed upon, and that are yet to be implemented, how do you think, if duly implemented, it will affect the ground game? But before you even go into that second part, tell us, there were varied opinions, different angles as to the processes or process of impeachment. Narrate to us what was agreed upon, and then you can get to the second part of the question.
Now, when we came to impeachment, we reserve the impeachment at this stage only for the president, because in normal circumstances, it could impeach senior officials, but we left that out because most of the officials that are in the interim government are serving at the discretion of the president. The vice president is the next highest one. The constitution provides that this man can be hired, or this person can be hired and fired by the president. So we don't need to overuse time and trying to impeach him or impeach her. If he or she does something wrong, with all evidence, the executive chief, who is the president, will simply fire them. So we reserve impeachment purely for the chief executive, who cannot be fired by a simple order. That is what we did there. Even the other employee, any other servant does something, he can be fired away because they are appointed by presidential decree. If the House Speaker does something very wrong, he can be voted out of office by his peers. So we don't need to wait to go and impeach them. Does that answer
Yeah,
that
thank
particular
you.
question?
Yeah, that answers it. Let's talk about, from your technical know-how, Barrister Team, there were other discussions in the House that we believe is going to foster the struggle positively. And remember to bring down your camera so that the people, I'm following the comment sections. Perfect, this is good. Amazonians are loving your knowledge, your wisdom. So they would like to really see your handsome face. Though your bones are weak, you're still so very handsome, sir. Now, the next part is, what are some of those other aspects that were discussed and that you believe is going to change the face of our struggle, particularly on Ground Zero? That is, if properly implemented.
Yes, before I go there, let me correct what you said. I have some service at the United Nations, but it was not in Congo. Okay. It was in Burundi and the Ivory Coast, the Cote d'Ivoire.
Okay.
And so that is where it is. Now, Ground Zero, no, home front. We decided not to be calling it Ground Zero anymore. The home front has to rest assured that what you and me are doing from outside is in their best interest. If they are not participating directly, it is for their own safety. Because they discovered that Mr. A or Madam B was elected into the interim house, for example, and you have the new, they can't kill you in the night. They will take you away. If they could spend all their money and time and prestige to go and bring Ayuktabe from Nigeria and put him in prison, why do you think that they will spare you if you're just living in Mancon or living in Manfe or somewhere in Buea? So let them rest assured that what we are doing is in their best interest. But going forward, once we land home in Buea, this 3-year period given to us means that we have to incorporate some of them. Because what does it mean landing in Buea? It means we are physically there. President Sako or President Patrick or President John will not be sitting in Buea with the governor, whoever appointed by Yaoundé to be sitting there with him. He's in control. So once we are there, I don't know how many of us who are in diaspora would choose to go and sit in the House of Assembly in Buea. Ground Zero would take over as a matter of right. If I'm to go there at that time, I will go by vote. And the electorate, 90% of the electorate is based home. If my county people or my LGA wants to vote for me, they are the ones voting for me. It's not us here. So let them rest assured that whatever thing is being done now, at least at the level of the IG, is in their best interest. For now, our sole goal is to prosecute the war. And we're doing it with the little that we have. We contribute money out of nothing, some of us. We saw an old woman who begged $200 from her grandchildren to give for the war. Who believe this woman is waiting for a day that she will go to parliament and represent the women? No. So let them rest assured that whatever thing is being done right now is in the interest of our people home. They will have the enjoyment, just as they are having the pain. If they are killing people on the ground. They are not killing me and you. We are free here to be sitting here and talking on TV and driving good cars. When they are throwing bombs, when they are bombing people there, they are killing people on the ground. They are killing their children, destroying their houses, doing everything that is impossible for human being. But let them rest assured that everything else is on time. We are on the good track for the benefit of those at home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barrister Team. We're going to be moving into the next part of this discussion, and it is quite sensitive. This is what you would want to call, should we say, conspiracy of the international community. Barrister Team, that you have another view, or a very strange, or would say not a very popular narrative as to what you believe is actually the international community. At certain times, you even think that there is nothing like the international community. But we believe that there is a community. And in this community, excuse me for that mix up there. And in this community, they are decision makers. There is an international community narrative. We think that narrative is not in favor of our plight. But before we get out of ASSC2 to look at the Russia-Ukraine war, the hypocrisy of the West, the reaction of the West to wars in the world, particularly the genocide in Amazonia, I want to highlight some concerns Ambazonians have. We have received your concerns as to what is happening with the CID. Listen to me. Have no fear. For your comfort, you know who your president is. Stop whatever is happening, but have no fear. If they could not take your national treasury, they will not take your CID. Every dollar that might have been fraudulently by hacker. Now, I want to inform certain individuals. They might not understand. I have a lawyer here. He might confirm if I'm wrong. That your picture features on a website that doesn't belong to you. And you have not presented a disclaimer. Already says that you are the hacker. And there are statements you have made or your acolytes and affiliates have made that link you to the crime. I'm talking about the lady Marianta, who is purporting as president for the Coopers. She is just in a soup that is cooking. Ambazonians, be rest assured. The website does not belong to a certain group of old, tired, worn-out, dull brains calling themselves Restoration Council. Men who do not understand basic English, reads the Constitution and don't understand. That website is the property of Amazonia Foundation. If I'm too dull, at least I know that if you have not been authorized by Amazonian Foundation, you cannot audaciously tamper with that platform. Be rest assured they will not have it. They cannot have it. When you know disgruntled, those who have lost everything, and this is a clear evidence as to what their objective is. The Bible says the thief cometh not but to kill, to steal, and to destroy. That is what they have come to do. These are agents of Cameroon that want to destroy our God-ordained struggle. But they failed even before they started. That's why I'm smiling. When you know the end from the beginning, you are not moved. When pepper tigers are talking, you are not excited. You just know that you will win. Now let me just read something to you that will inspire you. It will take about 2 or 3 minutes of your time, and then we get into the next phase of our discussion. This was written by Deacon Tasang. It's just an excerpt of what I was privileged to read for stakeholders during the Stakeholder Strategic Conference. And now Deacon Tasang, an aspect of what he said, incompetence. He was asking the big mouths, empty vessels, making the loudest noise. Are you talking about incompetence? So let's find out what Deacon Tasang was saying. Let me read it very quickly. Incompetence. We have heard many describe President Sako as incompetent. I have heard many who could not, without the least storm in their LGAs, counties, make mockery of our leader. Yet, the first mark of incompetence in this struggle is seen where people are unable to assess themselves, know their potentials and their gifts and callings, and how to be useful to the struggle. Incompetence is when one puts their personal interests ahead of the people's. Incompetence is when some members of the Restoration Council, preferably put in parentheses, defunct, dissolved, extinct Restoration Council, are unable to read meaning behind the letter of the interim constitution. Incompetence is when capitulating members of the Restoration Council impeach the victim of an alleged act of treason and free the one who confessed to being the negotiator and facilitator of the same act of treason. Incompetence is when free people believe that the freedom of the incarcerated is priority over the freedom of homeland. Did you hear that? There's something there. I'm going to come back to it. At the end of this program, I'll come back to it. I want to read it again. Incompetence is when free people believe that the freedom of the incarcerated is priority over the freedom of homeland. Who are these people? You know some of them. I'm going to unveil some. Incompetence is when people in prison ask fighters to silence their guns. Did you hear that? When people in prison, Deacon Tasang is in prison, and he's talking from prison. Ask fighters to silence their guns for them to come out first, claiming to be the genuine, legitimate leaders without whom nothing can happen. Incompetence is when esteemed lawyers suggest that IGK should be allowed to negotiate for federation. Do you remember a few days ago? Some telling us to hand over to IGK. Do you remember? If you do not remember, wait until the end of this show and I'll tell you. Incompetence is when esteemed lawyers suggest that IDK should be allowed to negotiate for federation and fail before restorationists can take over. Incompetence is when IGK, to be more specific, sues for direct talks with Yaoundé and expect to achieve homeland restoration. Incompetence is when a cabinet member joins rebel leadership. Marianta was a cabinet member. Worse, those were cabinet members. Some of them are not even aware of the master plan. Some of them have been evangelized into it. And today, they are apostles of it. I would say disciples. So, Deacon Tasang says, incompetence is when a cabinet member joins rebel leadership, even takes up the mantle of rebellion before discovering that it was all about hatred. Incompetence, the Kintasan cries out, is when one works for failure and expects success. I'll show you how they are working towards failure. I'm also aware of the doctored video out there. It is doctored, but it is a revelation. That will be our end discussion tonight. And now Deacon Tasang wants to contrast. Competence, on the other hand, is exhibited when everyone puts in their talents to make the leader succeed. But what happened? Sometime in March 2021, a man with his big mouth, empty words, told cabinet members, listen, we are all tired. Are you serious? Say you are tired. Don't say we are tired. Are you in me? How can you say we are tired? So competence, on the other hand, is exhibited when everyone puts in their talents to make the leader succeed. Make the leader succeed. Not advocate for the leader to fail. Make the leader succeed. Work. What is your own little bit to ensure that there is success? And that's why I agree that elections should be eliminated. Because when the clause of election comes, politicians, I read politics in school, so I'm telling you what politicians do, the criminal politics, the criminal elements in politics. What they do is to try to work in the mafia to make the other leader fail so that their ideology. This is what amateur coup plotters were doing all of last year. And even sometime in 2020, they did it. In alliance with Abongo Harrison. I have facts to make Ambazonia happen. When private and personal ambitions come after the general good in times like this, competence goes with insight and foresight. It was exhibited when President Samuel Ikomesako stated that the interim government would not have even preliminary discussions with Yaoundé outside of the framework of the Swiss-led process. You now understand why those who think that their liberty from prison should come before the freedom of homeland will mastermind the evil that we have just witnessed. But they were fooled. They were deceived. They were deceived by someone who says he is a journalist and doesn't report accurately and who lies like he breathes. They were made to think that this man could actually deliver. But he is a flop. He failed. They failed. They failed yesterday. They failed today. And they're going to fail forever. Because Amazonia is free. If you're watching me right now, I want you to continue typing. Amazonia is free. Amazonia is free. Type it like never before. Let the world know Amazonia is free. Tell Yaoundé that they are not competent enough to break us. If they cannot challenge our boys to drop their guns, they will not succeed to dissuade us and the diaspora from a cause that is working, and that's the Amba Peace Plan. So much for us to talk at the end of this program. I may take a few calls at the end, but before that, Barrister Tim, I'm back with you. The entire world is panting. You have sanctions everywhere. Sanctions from left and right. The other day, Putin also gave his sanction to Blinken, to Biden, told Hillary Clinton, listen, you're not coming into Russia no more. If you think you're the only ones that want to give sanctions, you are not coming. Good, that's an aspect of our discussion. The world economy is jeopardized. The markets are crumbling. Fuel prices are escalating. The future is uncertain. As we speak, even Biden does not have a framework as to what he wants in the coming days. But it would appear the real story is not being spoken. Putin has his own narrative. He claims the world is unjust or unjust against him. He says this is maybe a fight for justice. We hear of independence of certain states, or fighting for certain minority Russians within Ukraine. The narratives are too many. But what I'm talking now is not popular on the mainstream. Canada, Zelensky was addressing Canada the other day. I want to give an overview so that we get deep into this discussion. And seeking for help, addressing the US Parliament, addressing the Canadian Parliament, addressing the US Congress, seeking for help. He's receiving motions of support from the West. We know the West. India has been silent. China is playing double-sided. Syria and others are unwaveringly sending their support. Could this actually lead to World War III? These are all questions we have to answer. But our concern as we examine this is Amazonia. Now, current reports are stating that about 1,000, and even their report said it could be more, civilians have been killed. 1,000 people have been killed. Close to 1.5 million. Some reports say about 2 million have been displaced. These figures, if you want to calculate what happened in Amazonia between 2017 into 2018, I would say it's more. Ambazonians shouted. They visited every embassy in the world, did all sorts of protests, and there was yet no proper broadcasts on mainstream. This is an international conspiracy, if I'm not exaggerating, against the peace-believing, sovereign people, innocent people that are suffering belligerent occupation and recolonization. Barrister Tim, will I be wrong if I talk on behalf of the poor or the common Ambazonian looking at me now, that the West is not really interested in Amazonia, and that our destiny is in our hands? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Paddy. But before I get to that, let me address 2 points that you raised before I get to the international conspiracy. I heard someone showing the concern, asking if the money is safe. Let me just address that. All those listening to us, especially in Ground Zero, let them know that whatever money we have, $1,000, 10 billion, whatever amount, is not kept in a Mokuta bag and put it behind the house. Now, we have gone a long way from Skapak to the finance department of Tabenyang to what we have today. We have learned a lot from the past. The money that we have is secured. There's no room for somebody to go there and pick it and run away. The money is kept in a place called the bank. The bank said don't work that way. The Ambazonian Foundation that manages that thing is a foundation. You cannot just go there and take the money. It is registered and protected by the American laws, where the bank is in the United States. If they have similar banks in England and anywhere else in the world, it is properly protected. But take note, thievery, lying, there have been crimes that as old as human beings, they will always be there. The people will try to steal. But what we can do is to assure you that as far as the IG is concerned, we will do our best to make sure that they don't go unpunished, if at all they are there. Talking about Miranda or whatever, Marianta or whatever, that is not an issue. We believe that many people will come up and claim to be leaders. Those in Ground Zero always ask one question. You can claim to be a leader. Show us your way forward. What are we doing to liberate homeland? It's not enough to say I'm the leader. Tell me your own program. At the very least, we know that Sako came out with the LGA by LGA. He came out with the Ambazonian Peace Plan. Who came out, that's his own program. So if Marianta, me or you want to form our own, so be it. Show the program that is leading to the same goal of liberating Ambazonia. That's all we need. Because they will always be there. People will always lie. The crime of rape has never been there, and rape has never been stopped. And so that's that. Let me come to your main question. You see, this idea of West international conspiracy cannot be taken so lightly. First, the international community does not live in space. And let me start by an example. If there was an inter-ethnic war between the Akum people and Santa, people will flee. The nearest places they will go maybe is Bale, they will go to Bafo, they will go to Ngwen. These are their nearest neighbors. They're not going to go to Manfe. They're not going to go to Udi now. And so, if you look at that context, the Russia-Ukrainian war is being fought in Europe at their backyard. Now the European nations there, they feel the pinch of war. People are escaping the war and going to Poland. They're escaping around, going to France. And so these people are more concerned because they feel the pinch of the war. Take it to Ambazonia, we've been fighting and dying. Our people are running to the nearest places they can find. Nigeria, maybe some to Central Africa, maybe some to Equatorial Guinea. All of these surrounding governments, call it surrounding villages, down. Rather than stand out and say these things should stop, the Nigerians are catching us and sending us back to jail to be killed. That's what they are doing. The African Union, in whose backyard the war is being fought, has been silent forever. The African Union is made of 53 countries. They are part of the international community. What have they said? The occupation of Ambazonia has violated every single article of the African Union Charter. They have said nothing. If they say nothing, why do we expect Britain, France, Japan, United States to come and say it? In spite of the silence of our neighbor of the African Union, of UDAC, or whatever nonsense they call it, the Americans have even done so much to help us. So what can we do? Are there double standards? Yes, there's no doubt about that. Why are they not taking our case as seriously as it should be taken? And I say that, look, there are ways to address those things. I can say here today that as late as this morning, I was able to make this point clearly and understood in verbal language and in writing to the ICC that will have a case pending before them. Not hearsay. We petition what is going on to the ICC as late as December 2020. And they wrote to us acknowledging that they received the thing, they are looking at it in March. It's a year over. So we talk to them and say, but what is happening? They say, well, we're investigating. They will say, well, you're investigating without a word? And you're there talking about Russia and Ukraine. That started 2 weeks ago. And remember, Russia and Ukraine are not signatories to the Rome Treaty, to the Rome Statute. How is it that they are more important to you than us, who have been suffering since 2017? Well, they promised that they will address it, but the most important point I'm trying to make is that we have addressed those issues to where they might. They will not lead to any third world war because the Americans have said, and take them for their word, they are not sending a single one of their soldiers to Ukraine. They don't want one of theirs to die. They can give the Ukrainians all the money they want. They can fight over their territory. They can destroy the whole of Ukraine. Just like they destroyed Iraq. Just like they tried to destroy Afghanistan. They are not sending their soldiers there. It is local war for them. Whether they punish Russia or they do whatever thing to Russia is none of our concern. Our own problem is Ambazonia. We can only try to correlate what I'm saying right now to link it to us. All what is going on has been going on with us. It's not new to France, which is now lecturing the world how to fight Russia. It's not new to Great Britain, where they allow the Ukrainian rebel or whatever president to address the British House of Lords. So, that is what it is. They know those things. They know that they are not treating us in the same parity with the way they would treat their brothers at their backyard. Call them Europeans, where it is distinction by color or by proximity. That is the bare truth. But we can only benefit from that double standard by pointing it out to the people who could act. For now, the only people who can act and help us is the ICC. We are not part of Europe. We are not part of NATO. Neither are we part of Russia. So they don't care whether we die or we succeed. But again, let us capitalize on what we have at hand. What the ICC, they have already entered into a small trap by acknowledging that they received our petition, by saying that they're investigating. And I reminded them, instead of writing to us and telling us that you're investigating, if you have put out the statement publicly, that look, we know there's something going on in Ambazonia, call it Cameroon. It is bad. That would have influenced a lot of behavior of the fighters, be them the military or our own. But you didn't do it. But now you are now jumping on Ukraine, you are jumping on Russia 2 weeks after the war started. And ours has been there since 2017. So I would rather not waste my time on that nonsense of Ukraine. The only problem we have there is there are some of our brothers and sisters who, in search of safety, fled there. And they can testify to what is happening. Why they come to receive the refugees, they don't pick them. They pick their brothers and sisters and let you perish there in your own way. That's how it affects us. We must learn with our eyes open. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barrister Tim. I'm not sure that anyone would have just given it succinctly and beautifully like you've just done. But this is something I want to still take you back to it. It's important that it is an open secret, Barrister Tim, that the United Nations Security Council has France that is playing the dirty business of Cameroon. I mean, La République du Cameroon. Make sure anytime you're writing it, you put the U in a capital letter. If you have to use small letters, it is an open secret. Today, we see the West, mainstream media, avoiding to talk about our situation the way they should. It really doesn't bother me much. What bothers me, which is something we're going to talk in to conclude this segment and to get to the last part, is the buffoonery of certain activists of Amazonia, whom I expect should use their platforms to educate, prosecute, internationalize, advocate for our people dying. But what they've done, some who are avoiding, some now want to fabricate sex tapes, vilify, and assassinate characters of people. And I want to talk, now I'm talking on behalf of Dr. Yaya. Whatever you saw a certain girl, I don't like calling her name. She is engineered by Nanchop to do his dirty deals. If Nanchop is man enough, if what he thinks he's doing is legal, let him use his page and his name. He deleted some videos of his page initially. He hacks websites. He said it with his own mouth. We have it on record that he can hack websites. So I'm not accusing him. If he's man enough to do some certain things, instead of you sending another lady to fight Dr. Yaya, do it yourself. So there's a disclaimer. Dr. Yaya has sent out a disclaimer. That is a fraud. That is a doctored picture or whatever they want to do with. But you must not listen to such individuals. Now I'll get back to the subject. So you see people that call themselves activists. They call themselves activists. Instead of doing activism, you actually see buffoons on stage with a mic. And we are at a time when nobody can tell our story better than us. That's why you have to fund this platform. This is all Amazonia has right now. It is not only owned by you 100%. This is the only place where we advocate purely for Amazonians. So, sir, I'm getting back into this issue. It is an open secret that France will rather have the Security Council silent. They are in control of mainstream. They would want to dictate the pace. What is at the back of their mind? That is before we tell Amazonians what Amazonians will have to do. and what we must do. What do you think is in the back of the mind of these actors, power mongers in the international community? What is in the back of their mind when they despise our plight? When they ignore our petitions at the restoration or at the UN Security Council or in the General Assembly? When the ICC receives a letter from found lawyers like you, resound lawyers like you, and choose to behave as though they didn't see it, only to acknowledge a year later, what do you think is at the back of their mind? Because we know Cameroon's plan is the de facto policy. Just conquer them and own them forever. It is enshrined in international law. Amazonians, if we are conquered in this war, then we will remain slaves forever. So, but I want you to try to dig into the minds of these actors in the international community. Talk to us, sir. What could possibly be in their minds when they are being insensitive, irrational towards the peaceful people of Amazonia suffering genocide? We're listening.
Okay, thank you. Let me address a few things before you get there. See, what is going on in Russia and Ukraine is not new. It's not different from what is going on with us. They have not gone to the United Nations Security Council for any resolution because they know that Russia is there, they will veto it. But they have circumvented it. You find the president of Russia, of Ukraine, addressing parliaments in Europe, everywhere in the world, to buy support. And they are succeeding. Let me bring it back to us. The problem, you mentioned something called activists. I would rather think that this is pure ignorance. Our activists have ceased to be productive, most of them, or many of them, have ceased to be productive vis-a-vis the struggle. They waste their time over irrelevance. Let me go back to what we discussed a few minutes ago. Miranda, I hear, lives somewhere in London. And with her, there's a certain Mola Wonja, who lives in London. The energy they deploy criticizing Sako, they have Sako right. If they use that little, if they use only half of that energy and went to the House of Lords, they would influence a lot of things there. But they don't. Again, I say our activists don't seem to know what they are doing. For example, I've seen on all these activist platforms, what do? They go to interview Tabernash. What's that interview got to do with us? Tabernash was in the State Department. He is no longer there. Whether what they did there is good or bad, he is no longer there. What he said or did not say is irrelevant now. We should go to the State Department because it is the State Department that will bring up our case. Currently, whoever is there, that should be our focus, not on Table Nash or a certain woman who was head of the African World Thing in Washington, D.C. That's totally irrelevant because they cannot influence policy. I've seen people up to this point. Let me take, for example, Sokadev. They centered all their arguments on J. Rawlings. J. Rawlings could not even influence the politics of Ghana. He could not even have money from that government of Ghana to treat his sick wife. Then you are going to console him to do what? So activists knew where they were focusing their attention on. The time we waste trying to destroy each other is not helping us by an inch, trying to liberate ourselves. Let me give the bulk of us who are in the United States. If you see this thing they call the Swiss Initiative, you see this resolution coming out of Congress, it is because people are approaching those congressmen. It is because people are approaching those senators. The senators don't act from the moon. The Swiss talks are not just from heaven. People approach them. And so, the so-called activists, I've not seen a revolution where a chapter or a department was reserved for activists. What is activism? Activists are freelancers. They can say whatever thing they like. But our own activists have survived on lies, on blackmail. I can tell you, you can go on 100 TV stations and blackmail Sako. That is not going to take us an inch nearer freedom. Not one. You can, we're talking on public, everybody listen to us. Let them tell, for example, Mr. Amba Akuro, you can hold 100,000 Facebook discussions on CDN, on ABC, on other nonsense. It's not going to liberate us. It doesn't foster the struggle anywhere. Do something that will hurt the enemy. Yeah, when is used to that nonsense of discussion. I mean, we don't even criticize them as badly as people criticize them back home. And they have not budged. So, empty talking will not affect the enemy. They are talking now. They're even talking to us because we're able to kill a few of their soldiers. We're able to blow off a few of their armor cars. Those armor cars cost money. And they buy them on credit. They cannot even pay. They don't have money to pay their civil servants. That's why it hurts them. They're not acting because somebody is talking non-chop TV, OBS, or ABC. No, they're talking because something is hurting them on the ground. So let us cease from talking. If non-chop will use his time to raise just $1,000, that can produce even half of the fancy. That if he does nothing, he will destroy at least a bicycle or a motorcycle owned by a military man. And so, again, our activists should learn to be productive. When our comrade brother Anu created his ABS, people talked about, yeah, that was a good move. But since that creation of ABS, how much time have they devoted talking about the enemy? 80%, 90% of the time has been devoted to criticizing Sako.
Sako this, Sako that, Sako this.
So if Sako is no longer there, they will go to Boya. That's no meaning. So if the ABS had devoted half of their time bringing out strategy how they fight the enemy rather than bringing out strategy how to bring down somebody else, that would be more productive. And I'll sum up by what the President Sako himself said. You don't need to bring down somebody else to be your own force. The elephant is big. If you hold the tusk, fine. If you hold the trunk, that's still good. But don't leave the elephant standing there in your farm and eating everything. And then you go destroy your neighbor's farm, in addition to the elephant doing it. No, it doesn't help us. Activists, learn to be productive. Cease. I'm not going to say what you like, but rather than fight me, go fight the man that we're all trying to fight. Because as long as we are many, we're going to differ in approaches. We're going to differ in language. But the common thing is, if we all agree that there's only one common enemy, if the ADF has successfully killed just 10 military, rather than coming down to gun down ABC, General D, who are on, that would have meant something to the government of Cameroon, because when one of them dies in the battlefront, they give him a state funeral. They pay something to the family. That is causing them harm. So our activists, especially Mr. Nanchop, and whoever they are, and again, let me say, Mola Wonja, stop crying nonsense. Go to the British House of Lords. Go to the British Parliament. Address them there. You're in London. You don't even need to take a taxi to go. You can walk there naked. That will show you a degree of anger against the rightful people, because we were brought into this nonsense by Britain. They know it. They know it more than you and I. They propose the plebiscite. They propose everything that is there. And then rather than that, Mola Wonja will spend all his life fighting his own brother from Fako. As if Sako will live there forever. Sako may no longer be there, and Yaoundé will still be there. So what do you get out of it? Mola Wonja criticizing Wanja in Boyade, who is a dog, do everything to destroy anybody. I've not seen Mola Wonja condemning the government delegate of Limbe for not enforcing Ghost Town. Never. And so, again, activists, be productive in the struggle. Activists face the real enemy, not their own brothers and sisters. Miss Miranda, whether we like it or not, you are there. Use the best of your time. Next door, we don't need even in Zoom conference to talk to the people of the House of Lords. You can even book an appointment with the Queen. They will not receive you, but they will know that you booked one. So be it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Barrister Tim. I believe that we will have this go through some of those who might just be disgruntled. But we know that those who are not just disgruntled will most probably have made up their minds to work for the enemy. They will not as much as clink to this wise advice. We are going to continue on this line. As you can see, we're back from ASC. I'll be concluding this with you now so that we can round up and go to the last part. I may take a few calls for those that are going to stay till the end of the program. This is it, Barrister Team. We're back from ASSC2. The world is not on our side, per se. If so be, if we compare ourselves to others, they are not supporting us boldly like they would want to do. A lot of people, like they would want to do to Ukraine. A lot of people have suggested racism, but I see it bigger than racism. I see it as enemies of the same, working together. So our destiny is in our hands. If you have to talk as a delegate or as a stakeholder that came from Washington, what should Ambazonians hope for? What should we be engaged with? What will be your advice? I believe the president might be watching us or may watch us. What will be your advice to President Sako at this time? What will be your advice to Ambazonians? What will be your advice to our restoration forces? Please, sir, just talk. And let's round up with you from there, and then I'll take the last part.
Okay, what I would tell President Sako, the liberation struggle and leading the resolution struggle is not an easy work. It's a hard job. But in my own opinion, you're on the right track. To our people back home, the struggle for independence, or whatever thing we call it, has never been an easy ride. It has always been a journey for the few, even though at the end of the day, everybody will enjoy. Rest assured, those who are sacrificing, those who are committed, are not going to give up. Yes, there has never been war without victims. People will die, and people will continue to die. Don't be discouraged. The international community, as you said, you may think that they're not supporting us, but they give us some guidelines that if all our fighting forces, if all our brothers and sisters who claim to be fighting for the struggle could read the fine print of what some of them say, all of us, at least most of us, know that America plays a very big role on the international stage. They gave us a definition of our problem. They know the problem, and what did they say as a solution? Let the parties go to the negotiation table without preconditions and address the root causes of the problem. If we only sang this song, if we dwell only on this, call any other group, Facebook, whatever thing, if that was our goal, because it is only at that conference that this international community will come to sympathize with us. They are not just going to sit there with Yaoundé. No, they will be observers who already know our complaint, they know what we're talking about. But they are not going to be our prosecutors now. They are not going to do it. We have to do it ourselves. And to do it ourselves, we must understand our problem. For example, if all these people, all these groups had fallen on the Swiss initiative, I'm sure we'll be somewhere further than. But what they did was that they did not even understand it, and they spent all their years criticizing what they did not even understand. That was, and it is still the pathway. It has not been abandoned. It is still there. Yaoundé has never kicked it out. Yaoundé gave them visas to come to Yaoundé, and they made the president, they made the prime minister. The doors are still open. But Yaoundé, like any other criminal, think that they can delay and possibly solve the problem by themselves. Those at home, don't be discouraged. Don't say that they are no longer fighting here, they are no longer fighting. They are fighting there. Many people have written, there's no fight in Libya for the past 2 years. Libya, Red Dragon, they have nothing to fight there. The military and the administration, they're all out of Libya. There's nothing there. If all were like Libya, would have won the battle ever since. You don't expect them to go fight cutting down plantains and cutting down palm trees. No. There's no administration in that place. Like many other places. I'm not sure that anybody would like to go to Ekondetiti and be the super-prefect there anymore. So, let us be encouraged to read with lenses further away and see what is coming. Yaoundé is in a panic form. We need to re-energize, to bring them down. They are falling already, they are crumbling. And so, ladies and gentlemen, especially those back home, don't be discouraged. Yes, they were victims yesterday. They will still be victims today. And there will be some tomorrow. But that is not the end of the journey. We are winning. President Sako, you are on the right track. Any other person who criticizes, you are free to criticize, but come out with your own program, pointing to the same enemy, with the same goal. Then with all that conjugated effort, we ought to arrive at our final destination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Master Team. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I do.
Perfect. Amazonians that are watching, as you look at the great man, Barrister Team, I'm talking about Barrister Team, as you're watching him, just keep typing. Just keep typing. Amazonia is free. Amazonia is free. Keep typing and indicating to everyone that Amazonia is free. I want you to saturate it, because right now I will be coming to you with what I know most of you have been waiting for. So keep typing. Amazonia is free. Amazonia is free. Just keep doing that. Do that like you've never done it before. Continue to do it and keep telling them Amazonia is free. Amazonia is free. The reason why you must continue to do it and continue to tell people that Amazonia is free, the reason why you must continue that is because Amazonia is indeed free. Of course, Amazonia is free. Continue to tell them that Amazonia is very free. Don't accept anything less. Let it sink into your entire being. When you want to go to bed in the night, you look at the mirror, you tell Yaoundé, Amazonia is free. Refuse anything less. Now, when you get people who have other narratives, you look at them, and if you do not even have the words, just tell them Amazonia is free. That is going to be the punch. That's going to be the weapon. It will kick them from their ass like never before. Tell them Amazonia is free. But it's the team. At this juncture, sir, I want to say thank you very much. I hope tomorrow 8 p.m. Amba time, you will still join me, because we have to go now and read some clauses in the resolutions that came up from Berlin, process them, take some calls. And Barrister Valentine Ghana has opted to join us. So tomorrow we'll go deeper. Tomorrow also, I want to tell you, Amazonians, I'll be presenting to you some revelations coming from ground zero. Egiawan and Coopers, all the criminals, are now calling our fighters and telling them, trash. We have evidence and we'll bring them to you. But as the team, do you have a last statement to say to the people as we round up?
Thank you, viewers. Thank you, followers. My last word is this. Again, I've said this before. This revolution was not meant to be an easy ride. We are being criticized today, we'll be criticized tomorrow. But rest assured that we are getting to the destination. We are learning from what we do. We are improving by the day. So whatever thing we are doing is aimed at improvement. Again, I plead to our critics, not just to criticize, but to put out better alternatives. Criticism alone is not taking us anywhere. Those who cannot put better alternatives, give your $1 dime to support the cause. The cause needs money. The guys dying on ground zero need medical treatment. They need food to eat. Just do something. Do the best you can. The only best you can is not criticizing A or B or C and those back home. Rest assured that whatever money you contribute is safe, is secured. It does not mean that petty facts will not exist. They will be there, but we will do everything humanly possible to bring them down. They can try to do anything they want to. That's the nature of crime. Criminals don't hope to be caught, but they are not going to go unpunished. We'll do our best. We'll bring them to book. We'll push the revolution ahead until God takes life out of us. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you very much, Barrister Tim. See you tomorrow. I will be live with Barrister Tim Beheza. After Horizon, I'll be back with Barrister Tim and Barrister Ghana Valentine. Now, let us get on the subject of the day. But as you're waiting on it, as you keep waiting on that part of our discussion for today, I want you to keep typing. Ambazonia is free. I'll explain that to you very quickly, why it must be Ambazonia is free. Ambazonia must be free. It's like we are still begging for our freedom. No, we are defending it. We have criminals from Yaoundé, after failing to defeat us on the ground, they cannot dare in our black bushes, the thick equatorial forests, the hills of Mezam. You get into the rainforest of Manu. We are beating them. Don't let anybody tell you are losing the war. Don't let fake politicians, amateur politicians, illiterate politicians trying to give a narrative that nothing is happening, that we're not winning. No, we're winning. If we were not winning, Yaoundé will not subscribe them and put them on a paycheck. So keep saying that Ambazonia is free. Say it. Yaoundé doesn't like to hear that. Say it like you've never said it before. Before you go to bed tonight, you shout it out. You say Ambazonia is free. Say it until your walls, the walls of your room, everywhere in your home begins to understand. Everything, just say it until it inundates yourself, your being, be inundated with that fact. Say it. Tell the world. And then they'll start wondering, but what do we mean? Now listen, this is a God-ordained struggle. As far as Anu is concerned, I want to take it from bottom. I might go to the middle and then take it from the start. And I will shift a much part of it to our discussion tomorrow, when I have the gentlemen, Barrister Ghana Valentine and Barrister Tim Beheza. But you saw a doctored video. That video was doctored by Barata himself, Mark Barata. And then all of a sudden, he sends out a statement on his Twitter account to say, listen, that handle does not belong to me. Fraud. Who are you deceiving? Now, the paid agents of Yaoundé, Chris Anu Barata are trying to sample the minds of Amazonians. They want to see how you're going to feel with that strategy. Of course, sometimes last year, Chris Anu himself called Uchiba Nelson, he's watching me, and told him, listen, I think it will be good to take federation, team ourselves, plan, build our military, and then defeat Cameroon and cut off. Uchiba Nelson said this before Monday this week. Uchiba Nelson said it. He shouted it. And some people said he was a conspiracy theorist. Uchiba Nelson told me this last year. The same thing Uchiba Nelson told me. We have some other audios of his recording, of his conversation with Mr. Chris Anu. The same thing Uchiba Nelson told me last year. Mr. Anu came on his La Republique page channel on Monday, if I'm not mistaken, looked into the eyes of Amazonians and told them in a 10-minute monologue, I don't know what that means in grammar. If that's what monologue is, I'm not interested in it. I know the meaning. With a funny, he talks and shakes his head as though he's saying something good. If you compress it up together into 60 seconds, it was nonsense. He started by telling us how he is going to be talking to leaders as what? This man has made some people to feel that he has some authority somewhere or he can do something. And that's why even after he has been defeated in his own game, he still makes some believe that he can do something. The day I knew he was a weakling, he was a weak man, was the day he was celebrating a website that they have not even fully taken. In fact, they have not taken it. It has been hacked. I am acknowledging that. The website has been hacked. But the rightful owners of the website will surely reclaim that website. Believe you me, will get the website. And those who have pictures on the website and they have not sent out any disclaimer are criminals of a crime. Get this straight. Now let's get back to it. Chris Anu told us on Monday that some people are saying, who are those people? Thief, fraud. Some people are saying that we should consider federation, constitute ourselves, build our army. It sounds so sweet, right? And then cut off. What is there? What is the revelation in it? The revelation is in the doctored video. In the doctored video, the video doctored by Mark Barata, the very close friend of Chris Anu, even though he's trying to deny it. Listen, you can abort a pregnancy. It doesn't change that you conceived. Try to abort the pregnancy. We already saw traces that you were pregnant. We saw traces of the money you have received from Cameroon. You are now doing their dirty jobs. You cannot flee from it. You cannot run from it. Forget about it. That you're trying to run from it is a waste of time. Now, Chris Anu wants you to believe that some people would want us to take federation, not him. And then he pretentiously gives a narrative as though he is really not for it. This is the same man who tells us that we should hand power to Kondengi. And it is now an open secret that Kondengi is virgin for federation. And of course, the Kintasang has told us, Sisiko has not disclaimed, Yerima has not disclaimed. The apology letter sent to Etudi, begging for audience and for forgiveness. Listen, Ambazonia, we are free. Type there. Ambazonia is free. Just type it. Keep typing it. If you typed it only 10 times, I want you to do it 20 times. Ambazonia is free. When you find Yaoundé managing, cutting corners after passing via Bariku and some other criminals in Maryland to talk to our president, and our president told them, listen to me. If you want to talk to me, let's meet in Switzerland. They came with heavy pockets. Listen, Yaoundé has got the money, enough money from our resources. They can pay President Sako billions. I mean billions. So for you who is thinking that President Sako will flee away from dirty blood money from Yaoundé and take the few dollars that you have in your treasury. Listen, Cameroon is facing bankruptcy. As I speak to you, you find teachers striking on the street because salaries have not been paid. That's an indication that we're winning the war. Right now, that aside, they would rather borrow more money, steal more money, illegally take from us, and pay off President Sako than pay teachers. That is the worth of President Sako. Now they thought that Chris Anu was worth anything, so he was subscribed. I can now say it audaciously that he was subscribed, and I'm sure he was also paid. But then they didn't pay him enough because they just gave him a few francs. If not, his television is already crying. They are trying to beg for some donations. If not, if they had sufficient funds, they would not be trying to use clandestine means to hijack a treasury that their money is not inside. They have nothing in that treasury, so they cannot even take the treasury. There's so much for me to say. Amazonia is free. So after failing to convince President Sako to sell Amazonia for federation, they have now employed Chris Anu. They are the help of Ayuk Tabe and Yerima. Of course, sometimes late last year, Yerima was in Washington trying to meet with President Sako. Now you now hear them talking about certain leaders. CDN now, a few days after CDN, Mr. Cho Ayaba came out to make a disclaimer to say that he really never wanted it. But we now see a Yerima Cho Ayaba summit powered by CDN. That is why we're thinking that if Team Ark wants to stay sanctified, they will have to define their policies and positions very clearly. Now, I'm not talking from a government perspective. I do not have an authority to speak for this government. I'm talking from a media perspective, from the people's mindset. I'm trying to talk for the people right now. The government, the president told us over the weekend, we're going to strategically engage Team Ark. We have to question it very clearly because their policies, actions, recent actions are not very clear. They're not clear. I know you want me to tell how Mr. Arno misled. I've just given you a glimpse of it. And tomorrow, I promise to bring more of it. We are going to take stage by stage how he misled them and how he's a flop and why he must not escape a whip. On that note, it was Tarh Paddy King. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Stay tuned on ABC Amba TV.
By his word, oh yeah. The pressures of life come to weigh me down, but I'm not moved by what I see. They come and they go, but I stand strong by his word that lives in me. I am stronger, I am wiser by his spirit, by his word, oh yeah. I'm moving on to greater heights by his spirit. I'm marching on to greater heights by his spirit, by his word. Oh yeah, by his word.